Something massive just dropped out of Washington. And today, Canada's entire trucking industry is on the edge of collapse. U.S. President Donald Trump has just signed an executive order imposing a 25% tariff on imported medium and heavy-duty trucks, set to begin November 1st. The shockwave from this move is already shaking boardrooms in Ottawa, Alberta, and Ontario. But here's the twist. This isn't just another trade spat. This could be the biggest disruption to Canada's transportation sector in decades. And behind the scenes, there's growing speculation that this tariff isn't just about protecting American jobs. It might be part of a much bigger political game, one aimed squarely at Prime Minister Mark Carney and his growing influence over North American energy and infrastructure policy. Let's break down what's happening and why Canada's truckers might not survive this. According to the White House order, the 25% tariff targets medium and heavy-duty trucks, including semi-trailers and large pickups, the backbone of the logistics and shipping world. Trump framed it as a national security measure under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, claiming it will fortify America's industrial capacity for trucks, engines, and essential vehicle parts. On paper, it sounds patriotic. In practice, it's a devastating hit to Canada's trade backbone. Here's the thing. Canada exports billions worth of trucks and truck parts to the U.S. every year. The North American auto supply chain is one of the most tightly integrated in the world. Parts cross the border several times before a single vehicle rolls off the line. But now, that seamless flow is broken. Trump's new order does include a carve-out. Trucks built under the Canada-US-Mexico Agreement, CUSMA, won't face the full 25% levy. But there's a catch. They'll still be taxed on any non-American parts, meaning even a few bolts made overseas could trigger penalties. For most Canadian manufacturers, that's a nightmare. The government of Mark Carney is scrambling tonight. According to leaked internal memos from the Department of International Trade, Ottawa was blindsided by Trump's timing. Canada believed a negotiated exemption was coming, but Washington went ahead unilaterally, just hours after a tense phone call between Trump and Carney reportedly ended abruptly. Sources close to the PMO claim Carney warned Trump that the move would cripple cross-border logistics and drive small trucking firms into bankruptcy within months. Trump's alleged response: then maybe they should build in America. That line is already trending on Canadian social media under the hashtag #TruckWar2025. Let's talk about who's hit hardest. Canadian trucking firms, especially those dependent on cross-border freight, are staring down financial ruin. Many operate on razor-thin margins. Rising costs for trucks, parts, and repairs could wipe out thousands of small operators before spring. One major Ontario-based logistics CEO, speaking anonymously, said, "This isn't a tariff, it's a death sentence. We can't absorb 25%. Even our trucks that are CUSMA compliant depend on imported parts. There's no way around it." In Alberta, Premier Danielle Smith called the tariffs an act of economic aggression. She accused Washington of targeting Western Canada's booming energy transport sector, which relies heavily on heavy-duty trucks to move crude, equipment, and materials across the border. But here's where the story takes a darker turn. Several trade insiders claim Washington intentionally timed this announcement to coincide with Canada's push to expand its national freight corridor, a Carney-led initiative designed to make Canada less dependent on U.S. shipping routes. And Trump's tariff? It could derail that plan entirely. Some in Ottawa are calling it economic sabotage, while Trump's allies are calling it smart business. Some in Ottawa are calling it economic sabotage, while Trump's allies are calling it smart business. Meanwhile, U.S. automakers are quietly celebrating. Trump didn't just slap tariffs. He also extended rebates for domestic automakers until 2030. American manufacturers assembling vehicles in the U.S. will now get a 3.75% rebate relative to their sales price, effectively rewarding them for staying on U.S. soil. And now, that same rebate will apply to truck and engine makers, giving American companies a powerful edge over Canadian ones. Even worse, Washington insiders claim that Trump's trade advisor, Peter Navarro, told a closed-door meeting that this move would end Canada's dominance in North American trucking within 12 months. If true, that means this wasn't a protection measure. It was a strategic strike. But here's what nobody expected: the reaction from within the United States itself. The American Trucking Association, ATA, is furious. They argue the tariffs will increase prices and hurt U.S. truckers too, especially those who rely on imported parts from Canada or Mexico. In a public statement, the ATA said, "We do not believe that importing heavy-duty trucks poses any national security threat. This will raise costs and limit supply in a fragile market." In short, even America's truckers are pushing back. Yet Trump isn't backing down. At a press conference outside the White House, he doubled down, saying, "We're not going to let foreign-made trucks flood our roads. We're bringing every single job home. America first, always." In Ottawa, the fallout is immediate. Sources confirm an emergency cabinet meeting was held late tonight, with Prime Minister Mark Carney reportedly warning ministers that the tariffs could shave 0.5% off Canada's GDP by early 2026, if not reversed. Carney has instructed Trade Minister Chrystia Freeland to prepare retaliatory measures, including targeted tariffs on U.S. agricultural exports and construction machinery. Behind closed doors, officials are weighing the nuclear option, a temporary suspension of energy exports to the U.S. through federal permits, though it's unclear whether Alberta would comply. Premier Danielle Smith has already issued a fiery statement saying, "If Ottawa won't stand up to Washington, Alberta will." There are whispers tonight that Western premiers may form a joint response committee, calling the tariff an attack on Western livelihoods. Some analysts are even suggesting this could revive calls for Western independence, a movement that had been quietly fading since early 2025. But here's where it gets truly alarming. A leaked report from the Canadian Security and Trade Intelligence Bureau, CSDIB, obtained by multiple media outlets, alleges that the White House had advanced knowledge of layoffs coming at PACCAR's Canadian division in Quebec and used it to justify the tariff. In other words, the administration knew Canada was vulnerable and struck while the industry was already weak. If verified, this would mark one of the most aggressive trade tactics used by any U.S. president in decades, possibly since the softwood lumber wars. So the question now isn't just how Canada will respond. It's whether Canada can survive another trade war, especially one where its closest ally has just turned the wrench. As of now, Ottawa remains silent. But whispers in the capital say Prime Minister Mark Carney is preparing a major televised address to the nation, possibly within 24 hours. Will he fight back? Or will this be the moment when Canada's trucking industry, and maybe its entire trade foundation, finally hits the wall? One thing's certain, whatever happens next, the road ahead just got a lot bumpier.